Hello, I am just setting up. We'll be ready to start in just a minute. So come on in, say hello. Alrighty, hey guys, how are we doing? Hope we're all doing well. Welcome to the Songwriting Simplified Solo Edition. Solo in that it's just me tonight and not doing the show with Johnny tonight. He explained, I think, last night on his stream that he needs to go and see a family relative who is sick at the moment. So it's absolutely fine to release him so he can go and take care of that. So we'll be flying solo tonight, and we'll be talking all things songwriting and related subjects to that. So we will include things like arranging as well. So because arranging is a pretty important part of getting the song right. So we will talk those things as well, and how you integrate different aspects of different elements into your song. So things like horns, strings, and all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about all of those as well. And first and foremost, this whole thing is about you and your questions. So if you've got questions on songwriting, then let's get them going in the chat. So get your fingers typing, smoking fast, and we'll get this show on the road. We've got quite a few people in here already. We've got 11 people, which is very cool. Good start. Stephen Greenwood is here. Deer Creek is here. Just Bob, Bobby Booth, and Beatrice Dewberry are the ones that have commented so far. If you're here, then please say hello in the chat. That way I know who's here, who's watching, and who's not watching. That would be cool. So here we are. Welcome to this unusual edition of the Songwriting Simplified podcast show. In that we are in the comfort of my studio and my broadband and not Johnny's. So nothing fancy tonight, just little old me. So I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you're having a good week so far. I've been having a tremendously busy day, working away on client stuff today. It's been a client day, and I've had meetings. So in the midst of working on a client song, adding some extra production elements to the song, I think I've had 3 meetings today that I've had to deal with, and also prepping for an interview for a radio station, because I'm going to be a featured artist in their Artist Spotlight featured show. So looking forward to that. That's going to be really cool. So I'm just kind of going through that and preparing for that and making sure that I have everything that I want to deal with and want to cover in that interview. So yeah, looking forward to that. I'll let you know a bit more about that when I'm able to. But for right now, can't really tell you very much more about it, mostly because I don't really know that much more about it. So so there we go. Deer Creek is asking if I found a house. We have been looking. We've been looking at a place not too far from here, just about 4 minutes walk down the road from here. And we put in an application for it on Saturday. It can take a few days for all, everyone that was all interested parties to get their applications in, and then it will be up to the landlord to make a decision. So hopefully we will find out in the course of the next couple of days whether the landlord has selected us to be the new tenants. If that's the case, we will be moving forward. There'll be credit checks we have to go through, and then once we've gone through that, then we need to get the deposit paid, and which is kind of like a month in advance and that kind of thing. So we have to get all of that sorted, and then we need to arrange move-in date and everything else with the landlord. And then we have to raise an army of people to come help us pack up and get us moved out. So yeah, so it's all go. The studio will probably be the last thing that we pack down, so that I can keep working whilst everything else is being packed around me. And then we'll pack the studio down. And my plan, subject to my wife's approval, my plan is that the first thing that we put in would be the studio. We get the gear set up and wired up and stuff so that I can get back to work. But also I'll be helping, obviously, as much as I can with my knees that don't work, moving stuff into the house and getting stuff unpacked and put where they should be. So yeah, so that's what the story is on the moving front. I do believe that Mike Neighbor still has the GoFundMe page up and running, which he set up on his own volition. I had nothing to do with it at all. Certainly not my idea to ask people for money for something like this. But you folks that have donated, I want to thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart for donating. It's incredibly kind of you to do so, and I appreciate it immensely, more than you guys can possibly know. I value and treasure the generosity that you guys have shown me. It's awesome. I'm amazed because pretty much we're in a position where we don't have to worry about having to raise funds for, having to get new utilities sorted and get new broadband sorted and deposit and everything else. So that's a big load off our mind, because that's something that was worrying us, was troubling us. So that's pretty much taken care of. So, and you guys are to thank for that. You know who you are. If you've donated, thank you so much. If you've not felt that donating was something that you wanted to do, that's absolutely fine. No worries at all. And I just appreciate you guys anyway, regardless. So there we go. Let's see. Who do we have here? Somebody talking about a baseball cap. I should wear a baseball cap. Elliption Studios baseball cap on backwards. No, I don't do hats. Even when I've had to wear a hat, like when I played cricket, I had to wear when I was playing county cricket, I had to wear my county cap, and I don't look good in hats at all. So I wore it reluctantly. If there was a particular special occasion where, we had, like, I don't know, a visiting dignitary who was coming to watch a day's play, then yes, I would wear my cap. But otherwise, no, I would have it in my pocket, but I never actually put it on. So there we go. Deirdre says, I know what day this is. Music lovers unite. And a very good evening to you too, Deirdre. Thank you. That's a lovely greeting. And we have Darren Bryant is here as well, and Robert Overbeek. Good to see you guys. And my good friend Pets Pleitner is here as well. And Just Bob says, Johnny, have you ever heard of Framus Guitars from Germany? And if so, are they a good company? I'm afraid I have to say I have never heard of Framus Guitars at all. But it's very, very good to hear that there are German manufacturers moving into the guitar manufacturing market. Pets is asking if Johnny is okay. He's fine. He's in perfect health, but he's gone to visit a relative who is not at all in perfect health. And that's why he's not here tonight. So I said that I would absolutely be fine with doing a solo show. Bobby says I could not donate this month. Bobby, you are incredibly generous in a wide and broad range of ways, my friend. So don't you even worry about it, and don't even consider feeling guilty, because Really, there's nothing to be guilty about. It's a voluntary thing. It's something that you do if you want to do it, and you don't do if you don't want to do it. And I'm absolutely fine with whatever you do, to be honest, because you contribute by turning up to every one of my live streams. You watch every single video. You've bought both MIDI Drums Made Easy products that I've made with Dave Vignola. You attend the live streams I've done with Dave. You attend all of Johnny's live streams. You know, you are there, and you contribute a lot. And you know what? You soak everything up like a sponge, and you then go ahead and you apply it to your mixes, which is really, that's the best way you can donate to our cause, is by putting into practice the things that we teach, and getting them working in your mixes, getting them working in your songs, and seeing improvement happen, you know, by applying yourselves to the things that we talk about. If you can do that, then that's worth more than all the money that there is in the world. Deer Creek says, I'm set up for live streaming, but you and JG are the Studio One experts. We're not really. I have only opinions. Should I bother, or a waste of time? With a no-show audience, I would be more close to Gilder's channel. Go ahead and live stream. You know, I think Graham Corcoran was talking about this actually today, I think, or was it yesterday? I can't remember which, but either yesterday or today he was talking about, you know, the market being saturated, and do I have anything unique to bring? Do I have anything to say? Here's the thing. What Graham was talking about adding value. See, there's a lot of people that are doing live streams now. There's a lot of people that are teaching audio. There's a lot of people that are selling their products, that are, you know, that have membership sites, that have, you know, they have various membership schemes. I know Joe has several, and I know that Graham now has more than one membership that he has, that he charges for. Johnny has his Pivot Share. I'm about to start mine. And you know what? Yes, the marketplace might actually appear crowded because there's lots of people doing the same things. But here's the thing. Each one of us is unique. We might not be teaching original concepts. You know, compression is compression. EQ is EQ. Writing a song is writing a song. We don't necessarily have something original in that sense to say. But what is priceless is the fact that we are all different in our approach. Excuse me. And we're all different in how we have learned compression, how we have learned EQ, how we got our start in songwriting. Johnny and I, for a start, are very, very different. I mean, you get us on a show together where we're both talking about compression, and you will see just how different we are. Johnny has his approach to compression, which is different to mine. I just learned it in a different way. So in that sense, we've all got something unique to bring, every single one of us. If you've got the ability to live stream or make tutorial videos, you have an invaluable resource, and you have the opportunity to really add value to lots of people, to your customers. If you run a studio business, for example, and you're doing mixes professionally, if you're doing that, you've got the chance to add extra value, and you can charge for that extra value. So you can have your mixing rates, but you know what? You could also say, hey, you know what? I can not only mix your song, but I can make a video that shows how I mixed it and what I applied, what I did to your song to make it really pop, to make it really have some punch, and all of that fun stuff that we talk about, you know. And that's just a way that you can add value to your clients, and you can charge an extra $10, $20 for the privilege. Start nice and low, an extra 10, 20 bucks. And then as you get better and better at making videos, and you find new ways in which to present these things, not prevent. When you find new ways to present these things, then, you know, you can charge more, you can increase your rates, and you can increase your your customer base, and before you know it, you're adding a lot of value. People are coming to you saying, hey, I can go to Deer Creek Audio because not only is he going to mix my song really, really well, he's also going to provide a really interesting video that documents that mixing process that I can learn from. So absolutely, go and do it. Go and do it. If you've got a setup for streaming, go and do it. If you've got good internet connection, do it. I don't have good internet connection, but you know what? I do it anyway because I'm an idiot. Because I'm a crazy nutter. So, I'm watching the stream over here on my laptop, right? And I can see that it is freezing fairly regularly. I can see it is pixelating sometimes. And I know the audio isn't very clear sometimes. And, if I was to run Studio One on here, it would sound a little bit garbled. But you know what? Is that going to stop me from communicating with my customers, with my clients, and with people that, they're not just customers and clients, they're students and they're my friends. You guys are not just clients. You're not just, you're not just people that I serve professionally. You're friends. And that's the way I see you. So that's what you can do with live streaming. So go ahead and do it, Deer Creek. There you go. End of sermon. Let's see. I'm sure I've missed something going back. So David Russ is talking about Framus or Framus. One of the most important manufacturers of electric guitars in Europe between 46 and the end of the 70s. No, I didn't know that. There you go. Yeah, kind of like Hofner. Yep. Deer Creek says, I feel guilty. I'm self-employed and you guys help a lot. No. No guilt. I'm not going to allow any guilty feelings, okay? If you're self-employed and your business doesn't earn a ton of money, mine doesn't, it's fine. If you can't afford to donate to any of us, don't do it. Just receive. And the way you can serve the community the best is by adding value to the community with what you do have. What do you have? What do you have that you can add to the community? What value can you bring? If you can make videos, make videos. If you can live stream, live stream. If you can answer questions, answer questions. Go for it. You don't have to donate money, okay? Nobody needs to donate money. But if you feel that's what you want to do and you can afford it, nobody's going to say no to it. Pets is asking, do I use EZdrummer for songwriting? No, I don't. And there's a reason for that, actually. It's not that I think EZdrummer and Addictive Drums and all of those and Slate Drums and all of those are no good. Actually, I think they're extremely good products. Here's the difference, for me anyway, is that I got my start back in the 1980s when, all you had was some not very good sounding drum sounds that were built into the Roland D50 or the Roland D20 or one of the Yamaha tone generators that were around at the time. And I had Steinberg's Pro 24 and an Atari ST Eagle. And I used MIDI. I used drum map the drum mapping on my MIDI keyboard, and I would play it in, and that's how I started. So yeah, the thing with EZdrummer is, yes, it does provide you grooves and fills and stuff, and you can just drag and drop and move them around, and then you can create your groove and map it out to the whole song if you want, and then you can just drag and drop it into Studio One, and there you go, boom, you've got your drums, and they sound great because they're samples of a real person playing, which is fantastic, awesome. It's a great tool. But you see, I prefer, because I am a drummer, I prefer to actually create my own custom patterns. Now, I'm aware that you can do that as well with EZdrummer and all of the other ones. But yeah, it's just, I've just always used whatever is in the door, to be honest, for drum programming. Cubase, and I used Cubase for, well over 20 years. And they always had reasonably good drum kits built in, and I just used those. and I made several records doing it that way, and I made records for clients doing it that way. So I guess I'm a bit of a stickler for routine, and so I didn't really change. So we got over 20 people in the room now, which is awesome. Thank you, folks. Thanks for coming. Let's see. Eric Korb is here. He says, how important is it to be musically trained? I'm not. I can't tell you what key a song is in, but I know what sounds good. The key to your question there, Eric, is in the last part of your question there. I know what sounds good. That's the key. And in fact, that's the answer to your question. You've answered your own question in that last sentence. I know what sounds good. If you know what sounds good, then you can write a great song. Okay? Duke Ellington, probably America's greatest composer and songwriter, probably the most prolific, in fact. And he said, if it sounds right, it is right. Doesn't matter whether it fits to principles of music theory, harmony, tonality, whatever. If it sounds right, it is right. Even if it breaks every rule, every convention of arranging, harmony, orchestration, instrumentation, if it breaks all of those rules, but it sounds great and it sounds good, then do it. And don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. Yeah, it won't. Yeah, David says it won't let me use links. No, it won't. You cannot use links unless you are the owner of the stream or you are a moderator. Perry Brenning says, what I appreciate the most of you, Johnny, is you're very knowledgeable, but yet so humble. As well as Johnny Garb, you make us feel comfortable to ask anything. Well, you know what, Perry? Humility, trying to grasp and apply humility to your life is like trying to chase the wind and grasp it with one hand. It's impossible. For the moment you think you have grasped humility and you're applying it really well to your life and you go, yes, I've got it. I've got this humility thing down. Instantly, you just lost it because you became proud. You were proud of that moment. You were proud of that of your grasp of humility. You instantly lost it because the opposite of humility is pride. So, but yes, I thank you very much for your very kind words all the same. As to whether I'm very knowledgeable, I know that there are a lot more knowledgeable people out there. I will defer to probably what I think is one of the most knowledgeable people in the music business right now, and his name is Rick Beato. Go and look up his YouTube channel. He has all sorts of awesome content, from songwriting through arranging, through improvisation, through he does analyses of great songs. Like, you know, he's doing a series of those at the moment. I think he's done 19 songs in a variety of genres. So he's looked at Rush, he's looked at Steely Dan, he's looked at a whole bunch of bands. Tower of Power, I think he did recently as well. And it's a series called What Makes This Song Great. And it's that particular series, if you're a songwriter, is very well worth going and checking out. So I heartily recommend anything on his YouTube channel. Go subscribe to it and hit that notification bell, and you'll catch the next episode when he puts them up. So I'm very, very, very happy to promote him. As to whether I'm very knowledgeable, well, you know what? Knowledge comes through experience for the most part. Yes, you can go to school and you can be taught stuff. And being taught stuff is great. Learning stuff is great, but it's what you do with that information, what you do with what you learn, that's important, my opinion. So there you go. And I'm beginning to preach again, so I must stop. I only preach on Sundays, so let's see. Just Bob says Jackie Gleason could not play an instrument and could not write music, but still put out several jazz big band sounding records. He conducted the band and said where changes should be. Yeah, he had an ear. He had an ear for music, and that's what's important. Um, you know, you don't have to have all the formal training. If you've got a good ear for what good music sounds like, then you should be able to know what you're doing. Cab Calloway, who had the huge, massive hit with Heidi High song, he had a big band in the late 1930s, early 1940s. Alumni of his band would include Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker and a very young John Coltrane. And you know, Cab Calloway had no formal training whatsoever. He was a singer, he was a comedian, and he was a dancer. And he put a big band together because big bands in the late 30s and early 40s were the thing. They were the thing. Did he really know how to write arrangements? No, not really. In fact, when he hired Dizzy Gillespie as his lead trumpet player and Charlie Parker as his lead alto player, that was the first time that Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie met each other, and they began developing their bebop ideas, or what would later become bebop. But they started developing those early ideas and started getting them into Cab Calloway's arrangements. So yeah, that's yeah. So Cab Calloway, not exact. He wouldn't call himself a musician, but he led a great band. And the Cab Calloway band were fantastic. Mark Hosley is here, and I think that's somebody new who I've never seen before. So hello to you, my friend. He says, agree about Beato. I like listening to him, but he can get beyond me very quickly. Yeah, he is exceedingly knowledgeable about a lot of the technicalities of and the science of music in particular. I would describe him as a musicologist as much as anything else. He's a great musician as well. Stephen Greenwood says, I'm like Eric. I'm a drummer exclusively, but I know when something is off in a song. Just keep working on it, Eric. Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I said, I started out as a drummer. I picked up a pair of drumsticks in 1977 when I was 2 years old. And my parents immediately spotted that I had natural talent. And it was maybe later in 1977 that my dad gave me one of his snare drums. And that was the start, really. And they immediately recognized that I had talent. And by the time I was 6, 7 years old, I was playing in a band. So there you go. But I started as a drummer, and I picked up other instruments as I've gone along through my life. So I think I play, I don't know, 14, 15 instruments to in almost professional standards. Some are professional standard, like bass and drums and keyboard instruments. I'm professional standard at singing, professional standard. Some of my other instruments that I play, I'm less so, but it really is all to do with practice, really. But yeah, you just have to work at it, and you can develop your ear. You may never have perfect pitch, but you can certainly develop your ear and learn what notes sound like, learn what a major chord sounds like, learn what a minor chord sounds like, so you can identify at least chord type, even if you can't identify what the root of that chord is, you know, that it's a G major 7 chord, but you can certainly identify that it's a major 7 chord. So there you go. So Perry says, what's your go-to key to write a song in? Being a guitar player, we love the right side of the circle of fifths. How about you? The right side, that would be the sharp side. Yeah, guitar players like sharp keys. Most rock and roll songs have been written in sharp keys. And most jazz music is written in flat keys. The reason for that is to do with transposing instruments like trumpet, tenor sax. They are B-flat instruments. Alto sax, E-flat instrument. So they had to write in keys that were comfortable for those instruments, by and largely, which meant flat keys for concert pitch instruments. So, you know, predominant keys of jazz music would be F, B-flat, C, E-flat maybe, A-flat sometimes. Yeah, so anything up to 4 flats, 5 flats, would be a key that you would use for jazz, particularly bebop. The beboppers like to trip up swing players when they came to to their jam sessions by playing a blues in G flat, for example. And nobody could play a blues in G flat unless you're, unless you are a bebopper. And beboppers, basically, their idea was, well, what's the point of, only playing in a handful of keys when there are 12 major keys and 12 minor keys? So they decided, hey, let's become prodigiously proficient in every single one, in every single key. Okay, that's a message from Pets. I just had a private message. Pets, I'm gonna take care of you, my friend. Don't worry. Okay, if you're still in the stream, we will talk. I promise you, and we'll take care of that. Okay. So to answer your question, Petty, sorry, I didn't really answer your question. What is my go-to key? I tend to write in keys that suit my voice, to be honest. I can sing in most keys, but there are some keys that I'm more comfortable singing than others. So happy to sing in G, B flat, A flat, D, C, A, F. Most keys I'm pretty comfortable in, to be honest. Beato's son has amazing ear. Yeah, he has perfect pitch. And chat just absolutely jumped like it was on a trampoline. Eric Korb says, it's about respect. I can't talk the talk, but I can tell you when they are off key, even with 8 players are belting out. Well, you know what? That is a skill that you have acquired. And it's something that you've learned, something you've been able to train yourself to do, which is great. It's a really important thing to be able to do, and never underestimate it. Even if you can't tell in what way it's out, the fact that you can identify that it is a great starting point, because then your next logical step is to work out how is it out? Is it sharp or is it flat? Or is it the wrong chord type? Maybe. So you can train yourself to do those things. Deer Creek says, when I went to Berkeley in the 70s, the dropout rate was over 70% after the first semester. Yeah. Great musicians got intimidated and left school. Yeah. You know what? The university that I went to, there was a pretty high dropout rate there as well, because it was one of the most respected universities for music and pro audio. Audio courses in the UK. And I went there to study jazz music, and I did audio there as well, and I did musicology. So those are the kind of 3 areas of study that I did. But there were some phenomenally talented musicians there. I worked with, I don't know how many of you remember the singer-songwriter Billy Ocean in the 80s. Well, I was at university when his bass player was at university in the same year. So I worked with him a lot. In fact, I had him in my band when I was at university. And he is an extremely intimidating bass player. Possibly one of the nicest guys I've ever worked with. But he is a phenomenon on the bass. He really is. And he was in my first band and at university, and I was playing drums, and I had bass drums, piano, electric piano. It eventually became like a 12-piece band when I was at university, but yeah, and he played bass in that. So I had some fairly high profile, extremely talented musicians in my band, and they were all a lot better than me. And there were drummers there that would just, they blew me away. But the thing is not to be intimidated. If somebody is a lot better than you, that means it's an opportunity for you to learn something. And they have an opportunity to teach me, and I have an opportunity to learn something from them, which will make me a better player. I may not achieve their level or their stature, but it means I can learn, I can get better. And that's all I'm interested in. All I'm interested in is me getting better at what I do. And, I'm I'm long in the tooth in the music business, relatively. And so, but you know, my approach is all I want to do is learn, and all I want to do is get better at what I do. You know, I even in this chat, I've been referred to as very knowledgeable. Well, you know what? I'm not the finished article yet. Somebody said that I'm, as you know, me and Johnny are Studio One experts. No, we're not. No, we're not. You know, I don't think I have explored more than about 30% of Studio One. I'm pretty sure there's a whole plethora, a whole catalog of features that I am blissfully unaware of in Studio One. Studio One is a huge, huge thing. I'm by no means a Studio One expert. Neither am I a mixing expert or a mastering expert or a songwriting expert. I'm not an expert at anything, and I don't want to be. I just want to be me, and I just want to teach what I have learned, give away what I have learned, and as I get better, I will keep giving away, and I will keep providing the best content I can possibly provide at the best possible prices, so that I make a living and I can continue doing what I do. But you know, you guys get to learn what I learn. Sometimes I may only be a couple of steps ahead of you. That's okay, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I didn't drop out of university. Sometimes it was tempting. But there you go. I didn't do it, and I'm glad I didn't. Deirdre says, you have a knowledge of music that goes beyond your years. I think that's possibly because I started so young. You know, I was 2 years old. My parents are professional musicians. And they were quite high profile in the music business in the UK. And so, you know, great musicians came to our house to rehearse pretty regularly, you know. So I was surrounded by great music. I was surrounded by great musicians. And all of that inspired me to learn and to become better at what I do, and to even get started and in the family trade, I guess. So, you know, I was just a kid when you know, I started forming my first band. I think I started my first band when I was 7 or 8. And already by that point, you know, I was playing with my parents. And I was in school bands. I was in regional bands as well. So county youth ensembles, I was in those from an early age. You know, when I was in my early teens, I joined one of the best youth big bands in Europe at the time. And so I got to play again with some extremely talented musicians, and there I was, counted among their number. So I guess, you know, any knowledge I have has been learned through experience, because that's really the best way I learn. And I'm coming up on 43, so I don't know whether my understanding, whether my knowledge is commensurate with my age or not. I'm not sure. David says, the best way to communicate with musicians is to show them how good you can make them sound. Yes. Absolutely. And I've benefited from that. I tell you, the band I have had up until fairly recently, and I had that band for 21 years, their level of musicianship made my songs sound incredible and made me want to play outside of my, you know, outside of my range, outside of my ability, because they were that inspiring. They were that good. And yeah, they were the best bunch of musicians I have ever worked with. And I may never work with a band of that quality ever again, to be honest. So I completely agree with you. Bob says, what was the impact that Skiffle had on the impact of rock and roll? Massive. Skiffle had a huge impact on the very early beginnings of rock and roll. Oh, for sure. I mean, you could say that Eric Presley had his start in Skiffle to a degree, You know, it's kind of, I mean, skiffle itself is highly influenced by folk music. It's also highly influenced by the kind of blues music that was around the Mississippi Delta. So a lot of that kind of in this melting pot of skiffle music, and out of that you get Chicago blues, you get rock and roll, you get you know, Jerry Lee Lewis and his, you know, his piano styles, which he developed out of stride piano. That blues piano style comes very much out of early stride. I mean, he saw Art Tatum, the great piano player, who is one of my personal heroes. He saw him play and he thought, you know what, I can adapt that to kind of boogie woogie and blues that he was getting into. So Bobby says, got a thunderstorm fixing to come through. Got to go and switch my stuff off. Okay, Bobby. Well, it's really great having you here. Thank you for coming. Deer Creek says, I believe you can't develop perfect pitch, but you can acquire relative pitch. That is correct. Perfect pitch is, if you're going to develop it at all, if you do not have it latently, as in you're born with it, if you don't have it, then it's something it's something you have to get into developing at a very early age when your ears are very young. So when you're a child, you are of that age where you can actually, where your sense of pitch is still in development. So you can at that age, you can absolutely develop perfect pitch. Rick Beato says this because his son has perfect pitch. But he argues along with you that you cannot, if you're an adult and you want to go and acquire perfect pitch, that's something that's just not going to happen because your pitch is fixed when you reach a certain age. But you can acquire relative pitch, absolutely. And some people have a very, very acute sense of relative pitch. And when relative pitch is very acute, it can be confused for perfect pitch because it has a lot of similarities to it. Deer Creek says horns are a bummer for a guitar player. Sorry, I've got a very itchy nose. I must apologize. Horns are a bummer for guitar player. What, in that they are transposing instruments? Yes, I could see that they probably are, because guitarists like to play in E. Well, if you're going to play a blues in E on guitar, that's if you've got an alto sax player, that's going to put them in the key of C sharp. So I think it's the other way around. What's easy for a guitar player is not easy for an alto sax player. You know, a tenor sax player or a trumpet player, if the guitarist is playing in E, that's going to put them in F sharp. Again, not great for the trumpet, not great for the tenor sax. The fingerings are very awkward in those keys. It might be nice and easy on the guitar because everything is in, you know, easy positions. It's the brass and the woodwinds that find it the hardest. So flip the perspective, Deer Creek, and I think you will see that it's the guitar players that have it easy. Eric says, I do have the best gift of all. My son is wildly talented and is a dual math and music major at UCONN, and he is teaching me. Well, that's fantastic. Deer Creek says D flat. Why does that key exist, not C sharp? It's because of enharmonics. If you go around the circle of fifths and you start with C major and then you go this way and you end up with F, so you go in the flat side of the cycle, you go F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat, and then you're going into the sharp side of the circle after that. So yeah, so it goes up to 7 flats and on the flat side, 7 sharps on the sharp side. So that is why D flat exists. Even though we call it C sharp, there is a key called C sharp major, but there is also a key called D flat major, and it is all to do with the enharmonics that are that are being applied. So yeah, that is why. So if, for example, if I'm playing in the key of A flat and I'm playing a blues in A flat, because I'm in a flat key, when I go to the 4 chord, which you would do in a blues, that's going to be a D flat and not a C sharp. And then this is E flat. So yeah, that's why the key of D flat exists, because in the key of A flat you have chord 4, which is D flat. So therefore, logically, you would have the key of D flat as being the next key along. What kind of keys are beside you? What kind of keys are beside you? I'm not sure what you're talking about there. And this chat has just absolutely jumped again. David Rudder says, especially when the bugger plays it in your ear when you're launching into a guitar solo. There's a guy that played with Austin too. Sorry about that. JJ Shepherd says, horns aren't bad for guitar players as long as you like to play in B or C. Question, says Beatrice Dewberry, has anyone ever listened to jazz musicians? Well, you're listening to one right now. MJN Studios is here. Good to see you, Mike. Talking about you earlier. He says, use scat real good and convert it to sax parts. I have done that. Yes, I used Melodyne to do that. And in fact, I showed you how to do that, Mike, the other night when we were on Skype, because I thought it would just be really cool. It's one of the very, very cool things you can do in Studio One using Melodyne's ARA integration is that you can scat sing into an audio track, use Melodyne to get the MIDI out of it, and then drop that MIDI onto an instrument track and have Presence XT on there, load up a sax or a trumpet or something like that, and hey presto, you've got a sax solo. E flat, I hate as a guitar player. It's 1 fret off. See, this is the thing, you know, guitar players, they don't like to bar chords quite so much. And that's why they can only play in E, A, D, and G, because they're nice open voicings on the guitar, because, you know, the guitar essentially is in E. It's actually in it's actually a pentatonic instrument, really, because it's E, A, D, G, B, E, and so on. You know, it's a pentatonic instrument in the key of E. So it's effectively, the guitar is effectively in E minor in its native form, which is why keys like E major, G major, A, D, those keys all work beautifully on the guitar because they're dead easy. You don't have to bar too much. But you know what? You would become a better guitar player if you learn to play in awkward keys like E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and so on. And yes, it does mean you need to bar, but you know what? It just means you just need to strengthen those pinch muscles. JJ says, yes, I was tuned down for E flat, not enough frets. That's just cheating. David says, yeah, have you heard JL songs? He's a little on the jazzy side, melodic jazz, I'd call it. Wow. That's impressive that you call my music melodic jazz. Is it? I don't know. I suppose it is. I suppose what I put out there for public consumption would be what I would call sellable music. So yeah, so it probably is melodic jazz. Whereas kind of the jazz that I like to actually sit and play with a band on a stage would be not necessarily the most melodic jazz. Because I spent most of my teen years and early 20s playing, you know, various complex forms of jazz, not just bebop, but, you know, bebop and beyond, getting into freeform and you know, various forms of chromaticism and bitonality and stuff like that. So yeah. Deirdre says, oops, has anyone ever listened to a jazz musician and heard words to the instrumental, or am I weird? No, you're not weird. And actually, I think that's very cool. And here's a little challenge for you, Deirdre, is to take something like, oh, let me think, what would be easy to do? How about a Louis Armstrong trumpet solo from one of the Hot 5 recordings? Where he's not singing. It's an instrumental track, and take one of his trumpet solos and put some words to it. That would be quite a challenge. You're typing on an iPad. That's fine. Let's see what else we got here, because we're coming towards the end of the show. Deer Creek says, Rob Chapman just got intimidated playing with Steve Vai rather than excited. I thought that was odd. I had to play with Pat Metheny once. Wow. That was humbling, but extremely exciting. Wow, you got to play with Pat. I've met Pat. He's a really lovely bloke. I met him in Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in London, actually. He had his quartet at Ronnie Scott's for residency, and I traveled all the way down from Edinburgh to go and see Pat with his band. Was it his quartet? Or was it Michael Brecker? It was Michael Brecker's band. That's right. It was Michael Brecker's band. Michael Brecker on tenor sax and Iwi, Pat Metheny guitar, Antonio Sanchez drums, and who was the bass player? I can't remember who the bass player is now, unfortunately. But yes, and I met Pat at that show, which was awesome. He's a great guy, and he was really impressed that I made the overnight coach journey down from Edinburgh to London just to go see him, and it was great, and they treated me very nicely. I really enjoyed the show. Didn't get to play with him, but certainly got to meet him. I had already met Michael Brecker a couple of times by that time. But yeah, it was humbling, and it was exciting to hang out with those guys as well. Have you heard of Connor Cole? Yes, I have. Steve Smith, the drummer, is an advocate of Connor Cole, and he is extremely good at it as well. Deer Creek says, Studio One to me, like most DAWs, is a heavy hitter synth. You use what you need, otherwise you can be like that plugin guru or Eric Persing. Yeah, you know what? If you're not careful, you can become kind of like obsessed with the tools rather than actually making music. Yes, and I completely agree, Deer Creek, that David Rutter has the statement of the day when he says, with making other musicians sound good. You know what? That is the responsibility of every musician, whatever level you're at. If you're in a band, your responsibility is to make everybody else sound great. That's your job. And JJ Shepard says, Jimmy Page started in skiffle. Yeah, he did. And actually, fairly recently, I recorded a skiffle band, actually, for a small record label here in Edinburgh. It was great fun to do. Really, really enjoyed it. And it wasn't in this studio, by the way. I was doing it at a different studio. A friend of mine has a great studio down the other side of town, and I go and do things for him fairly regularly. He's a good friend of mine. So we share our skills. You know, he comes and does things for me. I go and do things for him. I hire him to play on stuff for my clients, and he hires me to play on stuff for his. So it's cool. Eric says, skiffle is a music genre with jazz, blues, folk, and American folk influences, usually using a combination of manufactured and homemade improvised instruments. That is correct. Yep. Yeah, it's a fantastic little fusion genre, is what I would call it. Okay, I'm just going to scroll down and see if I can get some more questions before we wrap up this show. David Rudder says, in my opinion, Jimi Hendrix influenced modern music more than anyone else has since. He certainly had a very profound impact. And I'll tell you who Jimi Hendrix would cite as an influence on him personally, and he would cite the tenor sax genius John Coltrane. When he heard John Coltrane playing, he heard a way to play the guitar that he had not really thought of. And I think that opened up his way of playing. Hendrix very much had a jazz approach to improvisation. And, you know, he liked to experiment a lot, and jazz music is founded upon experimentation. And his bass player and his drummer in the Hendrix Experience, Mitch Mitchell, is a great jazz drummer himself, and the bass player, I forget the name of his bass player now, but yeah, he's a good. They both have firm foundations in jazz music, so they made a fantastic sound, just the three of them, and they, you know, they made a really, really huge sound. There's a lot of space there, because when Hendrix is improvising, there's no chord changes, so it's down to the bass player to suggest the chord changes, and sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he doesn't explicitly state the chord changes, which then frees up Hendrix to play stuff that's outside of the key, outside of the chord changes of the song, which he would do frequently, which is why his music was so revolutionary and exciting. And Miles Davis was particularly very excited about hearing Jimi Hendrix. He went to a lot of his shows. And in fact, when Hendrix played the Isle of Wight festival, I think in 1969, Miles Davis was there because he was promoting his Bitches Brew record at the time. So they met each other at that occasion, I believe. If you look at what was in the singles and album charts in the UK and US at the time he released Are You Experienced, you'll be amazed by what a huge leap forward he made. Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Deer Creek says, I wonder why jazz band guitar players don't have an E-flat guitar. They don't, because for the most part, jazz guitar players don't play bass notes. They play the seventh, the third, and extensions of the chord. That's all they do. They don't play the bass notes unless they are playing on their own, or they are the only accompanying instrument in that musical context. But if you're playing in the context of a band where you've got a piano player and a bass player and a drummer and trumpet and tenor sax front line, there's no point in you playing bass notes, because they're going to conflict with what the piano player is doing and what the bass player is doing. So you basically take the seventh and the third. Those are the essential notes of any chord. You can suggest any chord just by playing the seventh and the third. There's the seventh, there's the third, and already you've got C. If I put a C at the bottom, there you go, you've got C7, B7, B flat, A7, A flat. And I've suggested that just by the seventh and the third. Those are the most important notes. Anything else you can add to that. So if I went 7, third, 6th above, that'd be the 13th. There you got C13. So bass player is going to play the C, the guitar player is going to go. So pretty much guitar players in a jazz context do not play bass notes. That's why they don't need an E-flat guitar. Patty Brenning says total of 15 major keys. My chat's just jumped again. I was just about to read that. Damn it. Read it when that happens. Oh, I have to go and find it now. Oh, Deer Creek says his D-flat key statement was a joke. Okay, I clearly missed that. Perry says total of 15 major keys, 6 of which are in harmonic. 15 major keys. Not so sure about that. I think there are 12 actually. Yeah, there are pretty much 12. You got C major, D flat major, or C sharp major. I suppose if you're including enharmonics, then yeah, so you go C, C sharp, D, D sharp. So there's no D sharp key. So it goes C, D, C sharp major, D major, E flat major, E, F, F sharp, G, G, what come after that? A flat, A, B flat, C flat, C, then you get D flat, and you get D flat, and then you get G flat beyond that. So yeah, I suppose you got a point there. David Rudder says, I think Jimmy Page used every tuning known to man and some that weren't. Yeah. JJ says, I agree Hendrix's vocabulary was infinite. It was very wide. He had a very, very broad listening palette. He listened to lots and lots of music from lots of different styles. And he took a lot from jazz. He took a lot from blues music. I mean, his music is so deeply rooted in the blues. And, you know, a lot of it was, he just heard things that nobody had heard before. You know, you get people like that. John Coltrane did that as well. He heard things that nobody had heard before, and he did things on the tenor saxophone that nobody thought were possible. But you know, he was in that sense not unique. He was still building upon the foundation of others, like, you know, Charlie Parker on alto sax before him, Lester Young, the tenor sax player before him. You know, building on that foundation, Coltrane came along and did something that nobody was doing. It was basically Charlie Parker's music on steroids. And then, of course, Michael Brecker comes along in the 1970s and 1980s through to his death in 2007 and does something that Coltrane would never have thought of. I forget what the tuning was for the Rain song, but it's the only song I ever found that uses that tuning. Okay. Pets is going to bed. Good night, Pets. Good to see you. Let's see. We're going to catch the last. Wow. Excuse me. Wow, I really needed that. Sorry about that. Perry Brenning says, oh man, my throat has just suddenly gone extremely dry. Wow. Sorry about that, folks. Perry says the key of D is very bright, hence Handel's Hallelujah chorus being in the key of D. Absolutely right. It is very bright. Trying to do this without looking at the keyboard. Yeah, it's very bright. And actually, I've sung that Handel's Messiah a lot, actually, being in various choirs. My university choir, actually, we sang that several times. And I'm a tenor, but I'm one of those tenor guys that can actually sing above what is normal tenor register, up into kind of like lower alto register. So we're kind of what we would call high tenors or countertenors. And most of Handel's tenor writing was mostly for people that could sing up in that register. So the tenor parts are really high, especially when you're singing the Hallelujah chorus, because it actually goes up in steps. It gets higher. So it gets really challenging to sing. Let's see. Dickery says, actually, if you couldn't play in all keys at school, you got an F in ensemble. Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. If you want to be a well-rounded musician, you need to be competent in every major key and every minor key, in my opinion. If you want to be a good jazz player, you need to be able to play the blues in all 12 major keys and in all 12 minor keys. David says, most jazz melts my brain. Well, you know what? When I first encountered Miles Davis's Bitches Brew record, that did melt my brain. In fact, when I first heard Charlie Parker, I would have been maybe 4 or 5 years old, I would think, when I first heard Charlie Parker. And it was just like, I stopped. I think I was playing with some toys at the time. My dad put, was it my dad or was it my mother? It might have been my mother. Put a Charlie Parker record on the record player. And I stopped what I was doing, and I was completely transfixed by what I heard coming out the speakers. And I sat for the full, I don't know how long the record was. I mean, back then in those days, records were not very long. Even the 33 and a third revs per minute speed of the vinyl was new technology in the 1940s, brand new technology. So they're making the most of it. So records weren't actually that long, maybe 20 minutes, and you'd get 7 or 8 tracks on that record. And I sat there completely transfixed for the full 20 minutes. I was totally blown away by what I heard. And I said to my mum, who was that? Who was that playing that saxophone? Because my dad is a tenor sax player, so I knew it was a saxophone. Who was playing that saxophone? That was incredible. Turned out it was Charlie Parker. And I made my mother go and buy every Charlie Parker record she could get her hands on. And I listened obsessively until I wore the grooves out. And then from there, I discovered John Coltrane, because my dad liked John Coltrane. And again, my brain was melted by his music, and the same thing happened. I listened obsessively because I'm a bit of an obsessive person. Let's see what else. Yes, Pat Metheny was an old Berkeleyite. That's right. I believe he's a professor there when he's at home. JJ Shepherd says, I've been reading about tonic keys, but don't really understand. Could you explain? I will a little bit, because it's quite a big subject, area. But the tonic basically is if you were to refer to kind of like the scale, like a street, and I do this for kids when they're very first starting learning to play piano, then this would be home. This would be working my way up the hill until I get to the pub. There's the pub. And there's home again. So, I'd walk at a reasonable pace going up the hill. And then maybe 3 or 4 hours later, I'm a little bit. And then might go up here a little bit, and over here a little bit, and over here a little bit, and over here a bit, and then. So, yeah, so the tonic is the home, the key center of a song. So if the Hallelujah chorus is in D, that's pretty much telling you that it's in the key of D. So D is home. So Handel's Messiah can go anywhere it likes. It could go in whatever. It could end up in whatever key. It could end up in A flat if Handel so wanted to do that. But when he gets to the end of the song, he's always going to go. And there you are, home. Okay? So that's the tonic. Hope that helps. Steve Smith is a monster. Yes, he is. Let's see. Hendrix had the hops for Dylan. Okay. Noel Redding. That was the name of the bass player. Thank you. Yes. David says, I was like that with Hendrix, bought everything he recorded and learned every note and word, including anything he said. Yeah, Hendrix was a wonderful guitar player. And I listened to him a lot as well myself. Skip says, I've been to that pub. Yeah. And then it's like, you're perfectly fine going up the road to the pub, right? And then you kind of when you're on your way home, you're a bit more like. You're a bit more like that, aren't you? So there you go, folks. I think that's been a really interesting show. We've had about 20 plus people in here the whole time, and you guys have asked some really, really cool questions. We didn't really talk about songwriting greatly, but we did talk about it, so that's cool. So tomorrow we'll be back over at Johnny's YouTube channel. He'll be carrying on his little series that he's doing. I forget what the topic for tomorrow is actually, but make sure you're there, folks, because the rest of the week is going to be very, very cool over at Johnny's channel. And then, of course, back here on Sunday, it'll be Easter Sunday, so I'm kind of not really sure whether I'm going to be doing a show or not. I will see. I will put out. Okay, here we go. I will put out an announcement if I'm going to do a show or not on Easter Sunday itself. But you guys are all going to be tied up with your families. Well, hopefully not tied up with your families. I don't mean it like that. You're going to be doing stuff with your families because it's Easter. So go ahead and do that, and don't feel that you have to come on my stream if you don't want to. That's fine. So there you go. Have yourselves a great rest of the week, and have yourselves a great Easter weekend. My kids finish school tomorrow for Easter. They get 2 weeks off, so I'm gonna have to try and figure out what I'm gonna do with them for 2 weeks. So have a great one, folks, and thank you so very, very much for coming out, and your comments and your questions have been awesome. And I will see you tomorrow over on Johnny's channel, and then we'll take it from there, folks. So I'm going to say a very good night to everybody. Good night.